Welcome to Industry on Blast, the podcast that takes you on a thrilling journey into the hidden depths of secrets, deception, and untold stories. Hosted by Dr. Marlene Carson, a fearless advocate and survivor, this show is your gateway to the shocking truths and captivating narratives that lie beneath the surface. Get ready to unveil the secrets of the industry and hear from special guests who have experienced it firsthand. This is Industry on Blast.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Y'all know what time it is. Y'all know what we do every Friday for the last 4 Fridays, and we're going to do the same thing this evening, except for this evening, we have an extremely special guest, Lisa R. Gray, LPC, and we're going to be talking about her book, They Don't Tell. Woo! How y'all doing this evening, ladies?
Doing well.
Well,
very well. Excited.
Awesome. Everybody had a good day today?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good day. Yes.
Good day.
That's good. I, as you know, I'm in the hotel today, so hopefully this, I can't do this camera like this, y'all. It's too close to my face for me. All right. So, oh my God, Lisa, how you doing? How you feel about this evening?
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. As always, I look forward every Friday. It's been absolutely wonderful.
You know, we've been having these conversations and some very interesting dialogue has taken place and some very interesting questions have come out of the dialogue to our Facebook and to our Instagram page about women, about exploitation, about sex abuse, and interesting enough, I just feel like not enough of these conversations are taking place. And I definitely think all of us are ministers of the gospel. We're all in church or we all serve the Lord. And I think not enough of these conversations are taking place in our communities, in our Christian communities. How y'all feel about that? What's your thoughts?
I agree. I think that we need to talk more about it so that people will not feel shame about things that were beyond their control, and they don't have to hide. They're able to become free, be able to speak their story, and just gain some freedom in Christ.
Yeah.
Christ died so we don't have to be bound.
That's right.
Absolutely. Timmy, how you feel about that?
Well, I think the conversations definitely need to happen more often, and even as often as they should occur, we need to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of people are not equipped to talk people through trauma. And when they've been in a trauma place, when they hear the stories, without having the experience and the know-how to navigate somebody through there, you could get triggered your own self or just not have enough information and education about the situation to render the kind of conversation that needs to be had when those kind of situations arise. So I think the education part of equipping us so that when we talk to people with these stories, and it's happening more and more every day, which behooves us to really try to prepare ourselves and educate ourselves and be equipped enough to give good answers and referrals and those kind of things that what people need in these kind of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa?
I am absolutely in total agreement. And as a licensed professional counselor, it really grieves me when I talk to people who have went to counselors and the counselors would cry. And they felt like they had to comfort the counselors. That just, I'm telling you,
that's real, but that's real.
I have to tell you that when you can't really be free to express things because you're concerned about triggering the counselor, you need to find another one. You don't have the right one. So
you don't have the right one.
I think this is important because I can tell you that I went to a counselor years ago. Had no idea that I was going to become a counselor at that time. It was with my divorce, right? I went to a counselor and I just remember thinking this was a waste of my time, a waste of my money, and I will not be back, And I
Wow.
think it's important that we know that I don't care what profession, whether you're talking about a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, Indian chief, everybody that has the title is not equipped for you. So
Woo.
I think it's so
Mm.
important for us to know that if you have given counseling a try and it just didn't work for you, you might not have the right person.
Man, let me tell you something. You said a mouthful because I was doing an event today. I was a speaker at an event, and they kept asking me, repeatedly asked me, can victims go for counseling and where? And the most frustration I feel is the same thing you just said. Most of the times we train in a counselor.
Mm.
And that's not what a survivor of trafficking. That is definitely not what we want to do. We didn't come there to train you, and we didn't come there for you to be your dinner time conversation because you just got the traffic victim. No, we didn't come there for all that. We came there for help and support, and oftentimes that's not what we get.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. So the other big issue that came out today, I don't know what I do with my phone, because I was going to send y'all the link so y'all can put it on your pages, but I
I
can't
was
even
about
find
to
my
ask
phone.
you for
I
that.
can't find my phone. Oh, wait a minute, I have it. Thank you. So the other big question that kept coming up was how do we talked about this a little bit last week. When is it a good time for a man or a woman
Mhm.
to approach the opposite sex regarding dating or even marriage? When is it a good time to do that? So this question came from quite a few men, and the question really was geared towards women who've gone through trauma.
I
You weren't here,
repeat the
Lisa. So
question. I
yeah,
want you
sure.
to repeat the question.
Okay, you weren't here last week, so that's why I'm actually bringing this question back up.
Okay.
And so the question is, when do men feel like it's a good time to approach a woman who's gone through sexual abuse or has been trafficked or has had some kind of issue around trauma happen to her? When is it appropriate to approach her regarding dating or marriage?
That is as varied as there are women on the planet.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
That is as varied an answer as there are women on the planet,
Okay,
because
yes.
everyone is different. So if there's someone that you are interested in, like you would let them know. And I don't think there is any more to it than that. There's simply not a cookie cutter answer to those type of questions, because what works for you, Marlene, may not work for Tibby. What works for Tibby is not going to work for Charlotte. What works for Charlotte is not going to work for Lisa. That's just like anything else. I don't see where there's any different, other than the fact that you want to be, what's the word I'm looking for? You want to be sensitive. And the sensitive is just letting you, I'm interested in you. I would like to take you out for a coffee. I would like to take you out to dinner. I would like to get to know you. So how can you, I don't know any sex trafficking victim, and I've known quite a few.
Sure.
They're just not the same. No more than saying every black woman is the same or every white woman is the same. It just
Charlotte,
no category.
did you want to comment, Charlotte?
I agree with what Lisa said. The other part of that is they have to be totally honest and upfront and direct.
Yeah.
Because a woman needs to know that the person is sincere and serious, not just trying to, take advantage of her or, pull on her heartstrings, but they're serious. They're looking for something that's going to be meaningful and hopefully permanent.
Yeah.
Because if it's just they want to date for a while, I mean that's iffy.
No,
Women
that's
who
not
are
what they're looking for,
vulnerable.
but there's no guarantee when you're dating somebody that's the person you end up marrying.
No, there is no guarantee. But
Uh,
if there's no interest in that, what's the point? I'm just saying.
yeah, no, so yeah, I totally agree with Lisa.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with Lisa. I don't think that, and I said that to the guys, like, I don't even know if that's a real question. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's so different. How can you just say that it's going to be at this point? Is so when it comes to speaking in our community, in the anti-trafficking community, it's been said that survivors should not speak for less than until they've been out the life at least 2 years. I think that's really ridiculous, personally, but that's what they say. And so dating, are y'all, you serious? And then when it comes to like everybody's in different spaces, everybody's journey was different. I know some victims of trafficking been trafficked for one day, and some that's been trafficked for years. You know, and they still, that person that was trafficked for one day can have just as much trauma as the person for years. And then most importantly, I think these brothers got trauma too. Who ever said that they don't have trauma that people don't have to be concerned about? Okay, Tibby, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking from the other perspective of the woman who is noticing that somebody does have interest. I think that it's really important to be honest, because I'm thinking about me in all of this.
Okay.
And when I was in a place, still in a place of trauma, I didn't want anybody to know about it. So I didn't tell. I didn't speak about it because at that point in my life, I thought it made me look inferior. It made me look this kind of way. But today, because who I know who I am, that's one of the first topics of conversation. And if a man is interested in me, we're going to talk about, because number one, you need to know that when you've been a victim, in most cases, when you have asserted yourself, you are no tolerance. You're not in this to play. You know what all that looks like, been there, done that. And so they need to know that you're in a place of, if this is what it is, this is what it needs to be. If it's something else, I'm out.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's important to state where you are. I think it's important.
So
you know,
so
good, bad, and the ugly. Here it is. If you want to check this out, this is the package. We're not withholding, and not just saying you just need to be transparent about everything, but there are the conversation that needs to be said and had, because this is who I am today. That's who I was then, but the person I am today is the person you're dealing with. But know that whoever we are from the past or today, there's remnants. Nobody's squeaky clean from what they've been through. Okay, I don't care what who says. We're better. We're thriving. We're this, that, and the other. That's cool. But we still, every day, we are still in the fight for life. We are still trying to make a step forward. We're still looking ahead, you know. And so with that being said, there's honesty and transparency that has to come to the table for this to be anything at all.
Okay, so now that leads me to another question. Do you think that, I'm not even going to say victims, do you think that people, when they're in that space of dating, should just expose everything during the process of dating? So like for me, should I, girl, you know, I ain't got no secrets. All I got to do is Google me, see what I do. Okay. But do you think that a victim of trafficking, while she is dating someone that she may seriously be interested in, but she may not know how he feel, but do you think that she should just expose her past to him at that point, or when it gets a little more serious? What do y'all think about that?
I mean, spilling the beans. Nobody just comes to me and say, hey, how you doing? Have a conversation. We're going out for dinner. And here's what happened to me. No, it doesn't work like that. But there's a time and a place, and you can kind of discern in your spirit when it's time to have that conversation, when you feel like that person has an interest for real, that the superficial, you know, we went out a couple of times, but now we're engaging in meaning conversation and the possibility, because everybody's been through some kind of trauma. When you expose a little bit and say that I've been in a trauma place before, not even saying everything that happened to you, you'd be surprised. Men are starting to say things. I've had men say things, and I'm like, whoa,
yeah, it's true.
Really?
It's
you
true.
know, and come on, tell me, you know, such and such. By the time I was such and such an age, I had been sexually abused by an aunt and a babysitter. Those conversations are coming out of the mouths of men now. This is like a never before type thing that didn't used to happen, you know? And so with that being said, I think that's why honesty is important, and you don't have to pour it all in at once. There's a time and place for everything.
Very good. Any other comments?
Well, I think I agree with that for me, because when I was approached by a man that was interested in me, I was already at a place where I was talking about my past and what had happened. So I was very upfront from the get-go, because I was not playing. I was not playing, and nobody was going to be playing with me.
Right.
Okay.
If you want to pursue this, this is what you get.
This is what you get.
And we had 3 dates, got married, and was married 32 years.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Wow.
I like that girl. 3 dates. Let's get with it.
That sounds like a God thing to me.
Oh my
That sounds like a God thing.
It was. And
that's
so,
amazing.
You know, and to me, for me personally, I couldn't afford to put myself in a position to get hurt. I just couldn't take that.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's good stuff.
Either you strong or you ain't the one. Bye. See ya.
Did you share the link, Marlene?
I shared it with you. I tagged you both, you and Charlotte. So tonight we're going to talk about They Don't Tell. They Don't Tell is a book by Lisa R. Gray. It's a powerful book for mothers who, just like Lisa, have to deal with the pain, hurt, shame, guilt that comes with discovering that their child or their loved one has been sexually abused. I'm not going to quote, because to me, this is like a famous question for me that Lisa's going to share, that her daughter asked her before she told her the truth of what was really going on. But I'd like to introduce to you all tonight, Lisa R. Gray. Lisa, tell us about They Don't Tell.
Ladies. You know you're taking me back, right?
I do. I do.
They Don't Tell it was birthed out of pain, and it was birthed out of a very personal incident when I found out that my daughter, who was 15 at the time, I was divorcing my second husband. So I was dealing with shame, and I was dealing with guilt. Wasn't able to get it right. And after the divorce had been finalized, about 2 months later, it was a Thanksgiving weekend. Thanksgiving was Thursday, so it was Sunday evening before she was getting ready to go back to school the next day. And you know, it was just a calm weekend. We were getting used to a new normal, I'll say that. And I was washing the dishes about 8:00 that Sunday evening. And Nikki came up to me and she said, "Mom, if I had something to tell you, would you be a mom or would you be a friend?"
Would you be a mom or would you be a friend? Now,
That
I'm going
will
to tell
give
you
you
that.
pause.
Okay, that's what you
That
just gave
will
me
give
pause.
you
Do you see? I
pause.
just paused like, wow. And so, what happened? What'd you do?
Well, it was obvious that something was on her mind. So I was like, okay, something's going on. Let me find out what's going on with Nikki. So I went and told my younger son, Nikki and I are going upstairs. We were going to the bedroom, and I said we were not to be disturbed. So from 8:00 on that Sunday evening until midnight, my daughter was squirming. And I have to be honest with you, I don't remember that conversation, because by midnight, she finally let it go that she had been sexually molested by my ex-husband now and her stepfather.
Wow.
So I'm going to tell you, beyond a shadow of doubt, I went into shock. If somebody gave me $1 million, I couldn't tell you what the conversation was that we had before.
Wow. Wow.
Because I was like, what in the world?
I was going to ask you that. I've been thinking about this part all week. Okay. I wanted to ask you that question because I remember what it was like for me when I told my mother, and there's some parts of that kind of thing that just you remember vividly, and other parts you just go gone. Hard to pull back in and just collect the whole thought of it all. And I just wanted to ask you, when she spoke those words to you, when you finally heard those words, what was your reaction? Like, how did you grasp it? How did you handle it? Like, and how did you react to her?
Well, first of all, my daughter's never been a liar. So I never, there was never any pushback. But I can tell you now, as I process things and continue to process, I kind of felt like in the Bible when Gabriel had told Mary what was going to happen. And she said, how can these things be? No, I've never known a man. I'm sitting there going, how can... I was just, there were no words. There were no words. There were absolutely no words. So then you really do, and this is what I did. I was going back in my mind. Remember, I'm not a counselor at this time.
Right.
I'm a parent. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out, well, when did this happen? Where was I? What was I around? What was going on?
Right.
Would he have done this? We were foster parents. We took in a family of 4. Was he doing that then? We had other children. We had
So there was other kids in the house. Wow.
The entire time.
Wow. Jesus.
Now my husband at that time was the minister of music at our church. So I was under the delusion that I was getting a Christian man in the beginning of the marriage. It was, Lord had made it quite clear to me that this man he was in the church, but he wasn't in Jesus. He was not in Jesus. He was not in Jesus. So those are the types of things that whole week, all I did was, I didn't cry in front of my daughter, but that whole week I was like, Nikki, we're going to be all right. We're going to get through this. I did, all those good things while I was dying on the inside. Because as a mother in this culture, you're taught that you are superwoman, that it's your job to do everything, which meant that I had not been a good mother, let alone a decent mother. How could this happen? Why wouldn't she tell me? My daughter loves me. I know she knows I love her. All these types of things that I just didn't understand. So one of the things that has happened is it's become one of my life's mission is to get this word out, especially to parents. And there's so many young women. I talk to more women than men that they're just saying, my mom, she kept asking me, how come I didn't tell her? How come I didn't tell her? Well, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, why wouldn't she? That didn't make no sense. It didn't make any sense. Well, now I understand totally all of the grooming, all of the shame, all of the guilt. And what's going to happen if I do tell? All the things that you talked about, Tibby. I mean, but when you first hear that, and then to think that I brought this man into the home to molest my daughter. You talking about some guilt and shame I had?
I'm just sitting here trying to imagine how my heart would feel. I can't even process that right now. That's very painful.
It's very painful.
I promise you.
My goodness.
So this is definitely one of those moments where it takes me back, even to the point of triggered, just to know how you felt. I know how it felt from our standpoint. And I remember the look on my mother's face. I mean, it was such
You're blindsided. You're totally blindsided. I really felt like I had a knockout punch.
Right. She's like, you're not saying this to me like this. We're not having this conversation. Like those words are not coming out of your mouth. It's like one of those things like, this cannot be real.
My daughter has been dealing with this type of abuse. she's been dealing with this type of pain from this man. It was, when I tell you, it was bad. It was bad.
I know.
But now let me move on to that week, because that entire week I kept sending her to school. She wasn't doing well in school. I kept sending her to school and then picking her up and putting on the good face when she was home. But I'm telling you, I was calling everybody that I knew, my pastors, my friends. I was in a good community and had a lot of support. But I just wanted somebody to tell me how could these things be?
Yeah.
Possible?
Well, I have a question now, because I want to know, what was the pastor's response? He was also the pastor of the perpetrator.
Correct.
What was his response?
Very much about, very soothing.
Okay.
Very prayerful.
Well, praise the Lord for that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And he was just, the entire time, he was a support. He was always a supportive person. And is to this day.
Yeah, I remember telling the pastor some things that was going on in our household, and he said, well, you should just be glad that a man married you with 4 kids. Oh,
yeah, I get that.
That's what he told me. Wow.
That's going to take me someplace else, Marlene, but I think it's so important for us to that the leaders that we have are broken leaders.
Yeah.
They have, you already said it, Tibby, they have their own trauma. So the things that they say let you know that there's some things going on, and so many leaders have been involved in sexual impropriety of many kinds.
Many kinds.
Many kinds. I don't know who it was that was talking about when a certain congregation would have a convention, that all of a sudden the amount at the hotels, the amount.
Oh, I told you that.
The amount of pornography that was being shown in the rooms went up. You're not the only one. If you told me, you're definitely not.
Wow.
So we have a lot of these closet sins, because we really want to put on a good face as if everything's okay, when we're dealing with so many broken leaders, many traumatized, so much. I'm gonna call it generational sins, generational curses that have not been dealt with.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I found out on this journey. There was a lot of incest in my family that I had no clue about. So when the Lord told me I had to write about it, and I asked Nikki, he was like, Mom, if it's going to help somebody, write about it. But I've had so many family members come and share their stories I didn't know about. I was ignorant of. Ignorance is the absence of knowledge, right? But I can tell you that when I started speaking about it in social media and different, you could hear the chatter. Why don't she just shut up?
Wow.
Why does she keep talking?
Sound familiar, Tibby?
I could hear the chatter. But you want to know somebody who Lord gave me this mouth to open up and talk about it, because it's those secrets that keep us sick. What goes on in this house stays in this house. People don't want to walk around with shame that their brother did this, their uncle did this. I mean, there were so many different things that it started because we went to the police. We went to the police and we reported it, because it was very clear to me that if this man would mess with my daughter from the time that she was 8 years old, she wasn't the first. And he didn't look at her and say, oh. So we went to the police, and we went all the way as far as getting justice. And even to this night, he's still in prison.
Wow. So They Don't Tell by Lisa R. Gray. You can get her book on Amazon.com. They Don't Tell. And Lisa, I was reading the reviews on your book, and one reader said, who was a verified purchaser, said this book filled a much needed gap in the literature on sexual abuse. It explores the complex emotional fallout of the mother who is unaware of the abuse happening to her child in her own home at the hands of her spouse. Lisa Gray has woven her counselor education with her personal experience to shed light on this important topic. It has a religious inclusion of prayers throughout the text. They are thoughtful meditations that will be of comfort to those inclined. They do not detract from the topic for those of different spiritual persuasions. I highly recommend this book to practitioners.
Mm.
Now that was something to me. Lisa, in what way does the book They Don't Tell? Tippy, I'm gonna mute you because I'm hearing feedback. So when you want to talk, unmute yourself. Charlotte, you as well. When you want to talk, just unmute yourself. But what way, Lisa, does They Don't Tell help practitioners?
I am really of the belief that there are many practitioners that really don't understand the complexity for the parent.
Okay.
Many of them are very much, and maybe so because of their own experience with those mothers who denied it, or no, I'm going to stay with my husband, or I'm going to stay with my boyfriend. They've had those type of experiences. But for those of us who that's not the issue, it's simply the shock of it all. They really don't have compassion. They don't have any understanding. They don't understand the complexity of it, because you start dealing with, as a parent, what did I do? What didn't I do?
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
guilt, my shame.
Yeah.
How do I handle this? Well, how do I handle my daughter? What do I need to say? And I'm going to say this for mothers. We had a immediate conversation, I think it was the next day, about sex.
Okay.
Because the only way that you can be sexually abused is if there was something sexual that took place.
Right.
And I want to say this because we were in the car when we had this conversation. And I remember telling Nikki, I was like, look, let me tell you something. I don't care what happened. I don't care how you responded. I don't care how your body responded. You were the child, and you were innocent in all of it.
Yeah.
I don't care what happened. It makes me no difference. You were the child, and that's a grown man that had no business touching you. And I remember to this day, the look that she gave me was, man, you really don't know. And I was like, no, Nikki, you were the child.
Yeah.
You were the innocent person, because our bodies are trained to respond. And when you continue to do something, your body will respond regardless of what's going on in your mind, your heart, none of that. But I need to share this part. Remember, I found out about this the Sunday after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
That Christmas, we had family get together, and one of my nieces came that was about 7. And I looked at her and I said, Nikki, that's what age you were when he started messing with you. And that's when I saw the light bulb go off on her.
Wow.
She wasn't a 15-year-old busty. No, she was a little girl. That guy was perverted. And I saw that light go off in her, and that's when she was ready to start talking about it. But she understood there that she didn't hold the guilt.
Yeah.
Because when you've been dealing with this for years and years, and now you've become a beautiful young woman, which she still is. But no, baby, let's go back. You were this little kid. And I'm telling you, I saw that light bulb go off in her when I said, no, that's who you were when he started messing with you.
Lisa, I can only imagine how that really supported her in that moment for her mom, because we hear stories all the time where moms see it, know it, and do nothing about it. So I'm just really grateful that,
like the movie Precious.
Like the movie Precious. But we know some real life Preciouses, trust me. But I'm just really grateful that she had you as a mother that could listen, hear, and validate her truth.
Yeah, she needed it. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. And that's the other thing. The first time I went to, and I finished my book, I went to a Christian book conference. And the number of people that told me their stories, including parents who had sent their children to Christian schools and had been molested. That night, I still remember being in the hotel, and I was talking to the Lord, and I said, Lord, this was a Christian conference, wasn't it?
Wow.
There's a lot of secrets that we're hiding in pews. There's a lot of secrets. Now we know sex trafficking, but the abuse, there's more abuse that has been hidden that we don't talk about, whether we're mothers, grandmothers, daughters, teenage. There's a lot of abuse. And that is
Lisa,
the
let me ask
enemy's
you this.
playground.
Let me ask you this on that note before you go on.
Okay.
Is there support groups, well, in churches that parents can feel comfortable going to and sharing this truth? Where do they go? Where do people go? Where do parents go? And the one thing I want to say to parents who may be a parent of a sexually abused child, you're not sovereign. And because you're not sovereign, only God is. So you can't be everywhere at one time knowing what's happening with your child, but God is sovereign. And so to remove the guilt and shame off of you so you can help your child walk through that same process. Because I know for me as a sex traffic survivor, I had guilt and shame and it wasn't my fault, but I still had it. And so where do you go as a parent to get that kind of support?
So it took me years in order to deal with my own guilt. Even though I was with my daughter, I supported her. We did all of that. But the Lord finally had to tell me what you were saying, Marlene. Okay. And he finally said, when are you going to forgive yourself? It's time. It's time to forgive yourself. Well, I had to learn to forgive myself because I'm not omniscient, because I'm not omnipotent, because I'm not everywhere. I couldn't be. So, and that's one of the pressures that's put on mothers this day, whether you're a working mother, and you're supposed to be all things to all people. And I mean, let's be honest, we all have our trauma. You already talked about that, Tippy. We all have different things that we're dealing with. So that's important. And that's part of what's in the book as well, in terms of what are some of the things that you're going to get out of the book. The fact that you're looking for someplace to blame. And let me tell you, that was a hot potato. I wanted to figure out who to blame. I wanted to blame Nikki's dad because he wasn't there, because he had been unfaithful. That's the only reason we were divorced. I wanted to blame his new wife because she chased him like, wow. I was looking for some place to put the blame. But I finally, with prayer and meditation, I just had to pray. And I had to put the blame where it was, on him. Yes. He was the one who did that, who made that decision. So we have to deal with that. In terms of your question, where do people go? It's going to be different in different places. Some people will have support groups. There's some places that do have good support groups, but not all places.
Really?
Sometimes you might even find some good places in your own church. We know there's some churches that deal with child sexual abuse. There's not a lot. Because most of the time, most of the pastors don't want to touch it because it's just a very painful topic. And they're really not trained. Pastors are not counselors. Let me tell you something. They are, they're not counselors and they're not trained. But that doesn't mean that they can't do a better job of bringing in those who are trained and want to deal with the hard issues that our young people and our people who are sitting in the pews. You know, most churches are 70% women. Why wouldn't you want to deal with something like this?
Yes, absolutely.
You understand it.
I totally agree. That. So let me just go ahead, Lisa.
I just want to say, in terms of, I think it's so important. I went to do a support group from a small town. There's so much shame that people didn't want people to know that would happen to them. So it's going to be different depending on where you live and where you are.
Yeah. I want to take a few minutes and just welcome our guests. We have many guests and comments in the chat on Facebook. Sandra Gosser says, you guys need to make an educational movie to teach everyone about this. A series to show in churches, schools, hospitals, and Netflix. And let's see here. Terrell had commented on the question, when would a person approach another person about dating? What is a good time to do that? And Terrell said they would wait a few months in before they even told them anything about their background. So I'd just like to take a few minutes and welcome you all. Thank you for joining us this evening, where we are talking about They Don't Tell, a book written by a licensed professional counselor, Lisa R. Gray. You can get her book on Amazon.com. Amazon.com. Charlotte, you've been quiet. What's happening? What you thinking about all this?
I think it's good, and I think that churches really need to step to the forefront. I was in a training today talking about trauma-informed care and my passion and my desire to just teach as many churches as I possibly can about trauma-informed care, so they know how to respond to people and how to develop supports for people who are hurting.
Yeah. Charlotte is also a licensed professional counselor. And Tabethia, who we call Tibby, is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I'd just like to thank you all, ladies, for being here tonight. And again, tonight we are talking about They Don't Tell. Why don't they tell, Lisa?
I think Tibby talked about that better than I could. I really do, because it's so important. There's so much grooming that has taken place. And then the shame and the guilt. Remember, Marlene, you just got through saying you were trafficked and you carried the guilt.
Mm-hmm.
I have yet to figure out how it is that when somebody gets violated, they become the person that holds the weight of
That's
the
very
guilt
true.
and the shame.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mhm.
ridiculous. It's
Mhm.
absolutely ridiculous. So, even as we talked, and my daughter and I, we talked about it, we did some counseling together. And I remember asking her one time, well, aren't you mad at me? And she looked at me, she's like, Mom, you didn't know. I said, but Nikki, don't you want to yell at me? Don't you want to shout? Don't you? She said, Mom, you didn't know. You didn't know.
Wow. That's very mature of her. That's all I can say, because I was mad. I was mad. I wanted to yell at my mama. I wanted to yell at you, God, the devil, everybody. Okay. And so, yeah, I was mad. I was hurt. And yeah, I probably did yell at some folks.
Yeah. So I guess that goes back to the fact that everybody's different, how they handle it, what they do with it. And really, how did your family handle it? Now, remember, my daughter was 15. She turned 16. She took the rest of that year of school out. She just couldn't handle it. She was processing the trauma and the trauma of everybody knowing now. Because remember before,
that's a whole nother dynamic. Okay, that's a whole nother dynamic. Go ahead.
It had been her own secret. Now she could be approached at any time. I'm going to tell you one of the effects of her being. Now, remember, she was 15, turning 16.
Okay.
About 4 or 5 months after finding out, she was getting counseling. We were going through the legal process. And the perpetrator was making me into a liar. I put my daughter up to it. I have all the different lies. It was all about me because I was putting my daughter up to it. And it was the talk of the town.
Small town.
Of a small town. So my daughter was under this stress in high school. So I just took her out of school. I'm here to tell you that when you make the decision to open your mouth and talk about it, it is not always easy. It's not. It's not. But it's necessary. I just remember Nikki talking about when we were it took about a year for the trial process to take place. But that week that we were in the court system, a lady had walked up to her and told Nikki that you're braver than I was, because you're braver than I was. This was a grown woman that walked up to her and told her, you're braver than I was. And Nikki said to me, Ma, if she had said something, it wouldn't have happened to me. Wow. And I told her, I said, Nikki, you're right. But because you said something. Now
Right.
it's not going to happen to the next person.
To the next one.
So
Wow.
he was convicted for, he got a first degree. It was not just Nikki, it was also his adopted sister that testified against him.
Mm.
And we know that there were others that they weren't able to talk. So he received 15 to 40 years. So he's been in for 16 years now.
15 to 40 years.
First degree.
And it was how many victims?
2.
It was 2 victims that talked. Okay.
And because Nikki was under the age of 8, it was in Michigan, it was first degree child sexual abuse, which comes that just one count would be 15 to 40 years.
Wow. Wow. Sandra is making a comment. She said, wow, the trauma of everyone knowing a whole other dynamic.
A whole other dynamic.
Talk of the town. That's horrible for a kid.
It was bad.
Horrible.
It was bad. It was bad. I'm telling you, it was bad. And I did have people tell me, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You don't want to go to the police. You don't want to do that to her. And I rested on that. I'm going to say for a good couple of days, but I just kept saying, Lord, if we don't talk about it, he's going to go to the next person because he walked around like a proud peacock because he could do no wrong. There was no way I could go. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
Tibby, you look like you're sitting on the edge of your seat, girl. What's going on in that head over there? Here, let me unmute you.
Yes, Lord.
I am sitting on the edge of my seat. Only
I saw you.
I'm about to jump over the table because I can relate so much to this. And because it happened so long ago when there were so many things not in place to help you with this kind of thing. And because of the fact that I had to be quiet for so many years, that when I was able to really talk about it, I still almost couldn't. You know what I mean? It was like my lips were shut and sealed, and I had been sworn to secrecy. And when I could talk, I remember having asthma attacks and going to the hospital.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like my breathing, I'm hyperventilating, my oxygen is not coming in like it should. I'm gasping for wind, and I end up in ER, with the oxygen mask over my face. Let me
ask you this. Is there a such thing, so the counselors, is there a such thing as trauma-induced attacks like this? Is that?
I was in the hospital.
You was in the hospital?
Yeah, it had taken that kind of effect on me. It was nothing but the stress of it. Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very real. If you think about panic attacks,
that's what I was thinking of, a panic attack, and I'm thinking she was a kid. Tibby was a kid. Trying to talk about something, and I'm thinking of the stress and the trauma that's in the body. Whoa, Jesus. Where does it release at? Where does, so I hear that some kids act out. Some kids become very promiscuous.
You said it right.
Yeah, some kids become very promiscuous. Some kids might turn to drugs or alcohol. We know Tibby. I don't know if you all were here when Tibby shared her story, but this girl ran away to the church. That cracks me up. Okay, she broke into church and stayed at the church. That was a classic, right?
Which makes sense because she wanted to be safe. She was looking for her safe place.
Her safe place.
She wanted protection. She wanted peace. It makes perfect sense.
That's true.
Wow.
That is true.
Go ahead, Tibby. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking just how emotional that is. And that's why, when I hear these stories and especially where young kids are concerned, when they're not even old enough to be able to process something like that. And because the brain is not fully developed until you're 30, when you're traumatized before that,
Mm,
You stop. Growth, everything stops, and you're stuck. And I remember that stuck like Chuck feeling for a lot of years, wanting to have some momentum, wanting to move, and could not
do it.
For the
Absolutely.
life of me. And that's when I started feeling inferior, because I said, I know I got something in me. I know I can do this. I know I can do that. And I couldn't produce like I want. I couldn't execute like I wanted. And there was just something holding me back that I just could not walk in a place of peace or freedom. And I am telling you, it's a horrible place to be for a child.
For a child.
For anybody, but a child especially, because you're trying to figure out what the heck is going
What just
on.
happened?
What do I do? And what did I do so bad in my life that something so horrendous would happen?
There's another layer.
That's what
That's
another layer.
That's the part that almost took me under. Like, what did I do? And
there's
how much
nothing
wrong
that
could I do at 11 years old? Like, how God couldn't be that displeased with me? I ain't been around long enough to do that much wrong. So how, God? How did this happen to me? And that's
one of the things that I had to. One of the things that the Lord really has allowed me to do this past year is to write a book for children, and it's called Nikki Nicole: The Courage to Tell.
Okay.
And it's for children.
Is that one out?
That one is not out. It's ready to go. I'm waiting for the Lord to release it. But I'm telling you, there's something about giving children a voice so that they can see someone else that are hurting. Someone else is going through something. Someone else wondering, should I tell someone else?
Yeah.
And it's written for children. It's written for elementary age children, because what we know now, as Charlotte can attest to, children are being molested when they're in elementary school. They're not waiting until middle school.
Let me tell you something. We actually have heard of babies being molested and men. Well, I'm not even going to go into it, but
absolutely
younger than elementary school.
Absolutely. We know that happens. So I think it's so important what Tibby is saying, because we need to, even just in terms of educating our children, sitting down, reading a book with them, talking about their body parts so that they know what their body parts are. Many times, and I've been a victim advocate. Many times the children don't even know what their own body parts are, because we give them names, because we're scared to say the name of our body parts.
But you know what's crazy about that? The school ain't scared to name them, and they tell them how to change them and how they can do all this other crap when it comes to our body parts. If they want to be a girl today and they're a male tomorrow, they're teaching them that. So why is it that you think that the parents, and I'm asking everyone this question, why is it so hard for the parents to talk about sex or our body parts with children? Because the schools are sure doing it, and they're not teaching your children right.
There's a lot of people that don't even know that, though. I mean, I just have to be.
What do you mean they don't know what? They don't know what?
Are not up to date on what's going on in their school system.
It's a whole lot that do too, Lisa. I'm gonna tell you, Lisa, in our communities, it's a whole lot that do know it.
I would say that there's more that don't than more than do, because, and I'm going to tell you why. You can tell based on how much engagement they have in the schools.
You don't have to have engagement in the schools for this, because it comes out in our legislation. It comes out on our news.
I'm saying that they don't know and they're not a part of. I don't believe that they know. That's my personal opinion.
So what I'm talking about, at least in our communities, I'll say in our state. So when they want to pass these bills on talking about sex and gender identity and things like that in the school systems, they send it out to everybody almost in the state. If you want it or not, you're going to get an email about it. Trust me, if you read it or not, that's your choice. And you know, my people are destroyed still for lack of knowledge. But, and I mean, we share this kind of information all the time. So let me ask the question a different way. For the parents who do know, for the parents who can be held accountable, why is it so hard to talk to your children about sex, body parts, gender identity, LGBTQAI plus 2 spirit? Why is it so hard to have those critical conversations?
You know, When you have a conversation with your child about abstinence and being a lady and the things that are appropriate to do and not appropriate to do, those things come from the mothers who's living a life in front of them. That's living a life of she's executing in her life what she's telling the daughter, and the daughter can look at mom's life and see that mom is being an example. So when you talk about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what's okay to talk about, you got to think about parents and where they are in their lives, in their own personal journey, and know that if you say so much, you might be stepping on somebody's toes. And so if we're not living our lives in a manner that our child can look at our lives and say that we're an example, then we will shy away from that conversation. And other times, people are just not equipped to talk about. I mean, a mother should always be able to talk to. I talked to my daughter, probably talked her under the table and back because of my experience.
But there's just as many people who have been abused that never talk to their children about it, and then their children get abused, and then they talk about it.
Well,
I mean, that happens all the time. But I have to say this: I didn't talk to my daughter. I did not. Because we were quote unquote a church family, and that we believed. I really thought she was getting the information as we went. I really did. And she.
Where do you think she was getting information from?
Church, as we went.
Okay.
Yeah, the church, the family. I mean, we always been a close knit family. We always had an extended family, and the extended family really did come around my daughter. I mean, there was just. I talk about this in the book, but there were some family members that believed I knew about it and didn't do anything.
Right.
And for those of you that run into my position on that was I don't have time to deal with you. I'm trying to get my daughter through this.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, there's, and I think some of it has to do with the way you were raised.
Yeah.
So some of the things that we do. We pass down, let's be honest, we pass down the good, bad, and the ugly. We pass it all down. So we are hoping that our children will do better than what we did. I had one friend who it was his wife had been molested by her father, who was the pastor of the church. He met her in Bible school. But what happened was her mother walked in on the father molesting her when I think she was in 11th or 12th grade.
Wow.
And her mother's response to her was, "What do you want me to do?"
Her mother's response to her.
Her mother's response to her was,
"Help us today.
What do you want me to do?" And she was like, "Well, I just wanted to stop."
Yeah.
And she said that it did stop. So then she goes to college, meets this wonderful man. They're going to get married, and she told him what happened. Fast forward. The grandchildren are molested now. Nobody talked about it. So her husband, who's a wonderful man, has written a book, and I can't think of the name of his book. Wrote this wonderful book, went back to his father-in-law and said that he had to apologize. He had to go back and repent for what he did. And the father-in-law, who's the pastor still, looked at him and said, "All of them?" I don't remember all the names.
Wow. Well, Jesus. Wow.
So the reason I'm saying this is I think it's very important for us to use our
Charlotte, close your mouth.
We have to talk about it. We have to make the decision that we're going to have to let the shame and the guilt go, especially that we're holding and it was never ours. Let those emotions go. And I think it's really important, something that Tibby was saying earlier when I was talking. Ask the Lord about your triggers. What are some of the things that are still triggering you? Because when we still have triggers, then that means that there's places that still have some bruises. So what are some of the places that you're still bruised with, that you're still asking the Lord for some healing? Lord, I need you to go back in that place. One of the things the Lord told me, I was in prayer one time, and he told me that I had hate. I was like, hate?
Wow.
He said it was lodged in my liver.
Mm,
And I was like, well, I know there's only one person that I could have hate about.
mm.
And this hasn't been that long ago. So sometimes we kind of push
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like the beach ball, you keep pushing it underwater,
Yeah.
you keep pushing it underwater, you keep pushing it underwater. Well, at the appropriate time for you, let the Lord bring it up so he can bring some healing.
Some
So
healing.
it's
Yeah.
not still bruised. I think that we have to be responsible for getting the healing that we need in whatever area of life that we need it.
Wow.
We are
Wow.
going to have to be responsible because nobody else can do the healing. So we're going to do it with the Lord, those of us who are Christian, but it does become your responsibility because you don't want to be all the rest of your life getting triggered about everything. Does that make sense?
You know what's totally makes sense. And so I just read a post yesterday, and it said if we don't start dealing with our childhood trauma, it will come out at the most inopportune times.
Yeah, it does. It does.
In your relationships, whether it be your intimate relationships, your business relationships, your church it's coming out. It's definitely going to come out.
Sometimes some people will eat it. They're going to eat it away. Some people going to toke it away. Some people going to shoot it away. Some people will drink it away. Some people will shop it away. Some people have to have all of the latest, all the name brand, this and name. But that's still those are trauma responses. Those are trauma responses.
So Sandra says they don't teach godly principles when it comes to sex in schools, and our bodies and the schools take over in perversion. Hey, let me just take a few minutes and welcome you all to the I agree, say Industry on Blast, which it is Industry on Blast. But this is the legacy of lies that we're talking about. And just listening to this conversation, I really do feel like we collectively as a people are leaving a legacy of lies. And these lies we need to dispel these lies with truth. We know that a lot of us grew up with what goes on in the house stays in the house. Well, that statement right there is killing us. We also know that secrets will eat you up alive. And just like Lisa said, it was lodged in her liver. I was reading another book, and Lisa or Charlotte may be able to tell me what book that was, that talked about, because I know we both have talked about it, that talked about how trauma lodges in the body. If you want, there is another book, not The Body Keeps the Score, because it was, so Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk was one of them, but this one was more on from a spiritual perspective. And it talked about how trauma lodges in different parts, how certain sins were cancerous. I mean, absolutely. And I'll look it up, and I'll make sure that I'll put a note out that, and I'll either put it in the comments or we'll talk about it in the next broadcast next Friday. But some of the reasons why we are sick is because of these secrets and because of sin. We got to get this right, people of God. And I know most of y'all on here are believers. And if you're not, let me help you. Mm-hmm. We need to get this together, regardless of what. Go ahead, Charlotte.
I want to comment on the statement that Lisa just made. There is, I don't know, little to no teaching in the church about sexuality, about how God designed it and how it's supposed to look, how it's supposed to be. And I think that culturally, I know I'm an older person. So when I was growing up, there was no sex talk. It was keep your dress down, keep your legs closed.
Right. Keep your legs closed, your panties up.
That's it.
That's the talk.
And I was sexually abused at a very, very early age, so young that I was grown before I realized what was wrong with me. I just thought something was wrong with me because I was starting to masturbate at 7 and 8 years old, knowing stuff that I should not have known. But but because there was no language, no
That's right.
talk, nothing, I
Mhm.
had no idea what was
Mhm.
even happening, you
Mhm.
know. And I'm telling you, I was having a conversation once with some children, and they were talking about their friends talking about having sex. I said, "Oh, what does that mean?" And the
Wow.
little boy, I think he was about 6. I asked both of them. I said, "Do you know what having sex means?" And the little boy said, "Yes, I know."
Mhm.
I said, "Well, what is it?" He said, "Kissing and sucking pee-pees."
At
Mhm.
6. Wow.
Let me let me get in real quick and say why this is so
Go ahead.
important. Children imitate
What they
on other
see.
children.
Mm.
So go ahead, Charlotte. I just had to get that in there because I have clients who have said they didn't know what they were doing were wrong,
Mhm.
but
Because
they
it was
were,
done to them, and so they did it to somebody else.
Mhm.
and the parents have no clue.
You,
Exactly.
And this is
you know,
going on in Sunday school.
mm,
This is going on in daycares. This is going this is going on in the public restrooms at school. When I
Mm.
children, here, they played this game with me. Let me do it to you.
Mhm.
mhm.
Come on,
Mhm.
Charlotte. Go. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I just wanted to make a comment on that because we're in a position where we could bring some change, and you know, I think that's what we really need to focus on, bringing about the change. Because as old as I am, and the younger parents that I know, I think they're still not talking about sex.
Mm.
I think they're still not teaching. You know, they're talking a little bit more, but I don't think it's in the right context. I think
Mhm.
that we just look at sex as the act of it, and we miss out on the opportunity to help them get a healthy perspective, to
Mm.
know that God made sex
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
about that?
and that it
Yeah.
is supposed to be sacred and honorable, and that the problem lies in the fact that it's not. That's
Mhm.
why all the
Mhm.
secrets, that's why all the perversion,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
they're not, you know, you buy something, you don't read the instructions, and you misuse it, you break it, you mess it up, and all of that.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
and we don't take the time to get the right information out there. And I think that's something that we need to think about.
So one of our guests says, Alexandria says, but the schools are talking about it. So when the school has created the narrative for your child's sexuality, big problem.
Big
Big
problem.
problem. Yes. Yeah. Wow.
I want to say, dealing with, and the reason why it's so important to talk about these things, because everybody is affected differently, their trauma. But I listened to what Charlotte was saying, how it affected her, and how Lisa talked about her daughter. And with me, I felt it was wrong from the very first time that it happened to me. So what that did to me in my brain, I can look at it now because I couldn't process that then. But I look at me as the adult woman now and see how the rationale in my brain, when as a child, I felt like this is wrong, this is bad. I was just the opposite. My brain would let my body respond. But see, it didn't stop there. My adult life, now I'm married.
Mm.
And now I'm like, "Ugh, I got to get through this. I don't really want it. I'm a
Mm.
married. It's part of marriage, and I'm supposed to like it. I went so many years. There were years in my life that sex was not good. It was not good,
Mm.
and
Mm.
it was not good because my brain said, as a child, this is wrong, and if it's wrong, it ain't supposed to feel. And my whole continent shut down, and then it
Mm.
shut down in my adult life, and now I felt
Mm.
abnormal. I
Mm.
felt like I'm not a woman, or something's
Mm.
wrong with me, or why can't And
Whole
so
nother level.
a whole
Mm.
nother
Mm.
level of
Mm.
stuff happened to me because now I feel inadequate as a woman. Now I feel like, but something's wrong with me. I'm not. And I talk to my girlfriends. Their sexuality wasn't like that. They like sex. What's wrong with me? Why don't I? You know,
Oh,
and so, and then when I finally got through that hurdle in my life, when I like sex, then I said enjoy sex, overboard the other way. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Just being able to create a place of balance in all that turbulence, because it was like this, you
That's
know, and
good.
so it took some time for me to get myself to a place of understanding where the balance of all this happens, where sex is concerned, you know, and what it did to me as how it made me feel as a woman. I felt less than.
Mm,
Wow.
So I want to read this comment. Alexandria Peters said, yep, cartoon pictures in sex education starting in the 6th grade. She works in the school system. And she said they're showing it to kids as early as 6th grade. So how old is a 6th grader? Like 11? Is it? I
Probably
don't
11.
know. Tell me. About
That
11?
sounds right. About 11.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So they're showing cartoons, sexual cartoons to children at 11 years old. So parents, you see the reason why it's so imperative that you teach your own kids.
That's right.
It's imperative. She said they're 11 to 12. Trauma causes re-trauma over and over and over. Yeah. You need to teach your own kids. And you know what's kind of jacked up, because so many parents, well, a lot of kids are in single parent families. So mom is trying her best to do what she do, to provide, to care for, to make sure they got someplace to live, food to eat, all the necessities of life. And that is a very important thing that we cannot ignore. We can't just say, I'm gonna let them teach it, because no. We just we can't even afford to do that, to be quite honest. Because they have all our kids messed up.
Another thing I was thinking, as we
I don't
educate
know what you're
and
going to do
share.
after.
Hold on, Lisa. Tippy was speaking. I don't know if you heard her. Hold on a second, Lisa. Go
I
ahead, Tippy.
was saying that as we educate young people and people around us, and give them an understanding of how we have to react to these kind of things and how we talk to our kids. And because so many kids, and as I was kind of reading some reviews for my book, so many people were saying, that happened to me as a child. That
Wow.
happened to me as a child. This opened up some wounds for me. I got to go back and look at this. I covered it up all my life. Somebody told me, I read a couple of chapters. I put your book down because I had to go regroup and get myself together. And then I came back, and then I had to look at me because I went through. Because this process is so continuous, and we're going to have to keep dealing with it over and over and over, we have to talk about the forgiveness piece in this. The reason why is because you're train wrecked without that part. Without that part, you can't heal, you can't go further, you can't move on. Because and in my mind, I was reckless for so long because I felt like I had a reason not to forgive. Look what happened to me. Look what he did. I don't want to forgive. And so I stayed out there way too long on that premise. But the truth of the matter is, the forgiveness part is not for them. It's for you. It's so you can heal. It's so you can be made whole. So as we talk to young people about the process who's gone through that, we've got to talk about the forgiveness piece so we can help, so they can begin the process of healing, because you can't heal without it.
Now, ladies, y'all notice I have not taken a break, and y'all still talking. Y'all have noticed that.
This is so good, though.
And you probably have noticed that we are over an hour. Okay.
Yes,
do you want to continue?
Not tonight, but I am wondering when we're going to get to, and if this is something that you're looking at. I'm really, and because it's one of the things the Lord has me working on, those generational curses. How does that play in with the child sexual abuse? How does that play in with sex trafficking? How does that play in with being touched at an early age? Because we're talking about being in the Lord and getting some healing. I'm just saying.
Well, I can tell you that I don't know if we will in Legacy of Lies series, because everyone in our audience is not a believer.
Sure.
And so,
but we are talking about healing.
And so I want to give just want to give space as we walk them through. I think it's going to be like a journey. I want to give them space to process it, because this is something that needs to be processed. And so I think we will get to it. The other thing I'll say is I really, I think it was Sandra who said that we should do some kind of Netflix series. I'm going to make a recommendation tonight. And one of the things that I would highly recommend to everyone in this room, to anyone that's listening that has a book product, and look, this is just, I'm going to say it like I feel it. Create or start a book club and charge for it. And have a counselor, a licensed counselor in your book club with you to walk people through the process. And have those critical conversations and open it up and really talk, and let it be private, not on this public platform. Let it be a private group where you can actually talk about not just your story, but Tippy, you just said 4 or 5 folks that are saying this happened to me too. This, people need to get this out, and they do need to know how to process it. We know that both Charlotte and Lisa are licensed professional counselors, and they can help people walk through this. Lisa has actually, she has a room, not a room. She has a program. You started yesterday? Did you? Courts of Heaven?
It's going to start on Wednesday, the Courts of Heaven.
So she has a product called the Courts of Heaven, where people can, where can people sign up for that?
They can just reach me. I'll just give you my email, bloodlinecurseBreakers.com.
Is there a website?
Bloodline, nah, it's not on there. Just reach me by email.
Okay, hold on. Let me put the email out. Hold on a second. So you can also reach Lisa. Let me see. I'm going to put it like this. You can reach Lisa at bloodlinecurseBreakers.com.
Without a S.
Breaker.com. So if you have been bloodlinecurseBreaker.com. Okay. If you have been sexually abused, your child, what is it?
You didn't. It's supposed to be my email, because it's not on the website. bloodlinecurseBreaker@gmail.
Oh, you didn't say that. Okay, I'm sorry. At Gmail.
I put it in the chat for you.
All right, here we go. Is that right?
Thank you.
Yeah. You can reach Lisa at bloodlinecurseBreaker.com if you want to take it a step further and you understand. And I'm going to tell you, there is an understanding that needs to take when you start dealing in the courts of heaven. That's a whole deep conversation that I don't want to hit tonight, but that is definitely a much deeper conversation. But for those who have, I'm telling you, books and products, I would highly recommend you all doing a monthly book club. Put a cost to it, because you're going to have to pay a therapist. You're going to have to pay a counselor to come in and begin to talk about it. Ladies, y'all want to continue? We're going to end in 9 minutes, whether you want to or not, because we have gone for about an hour and a half. And so I'm going to ask, are there any final comments? And Tibby, we'll start with you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just think this is a really wonderful thing. I just feel like we're really on the right track, and just conversations that I've had recently, text messages like, are you guys on tonight? Somebody called me and said, what are you guys talking about tonight? They were interested in the dialogue, because they have kids and grandkids that they want to be okay, who are walking around in a world that have sexual predators on every hand, and they want their kids and their family and their friends to be safe. So we are past the time of not talking about this. Too much time has gone past. Too many lives have been touched. too many kids have been traumatized and victimized. It's time. It's a call for action, period.
Charlotte, final comments?
I think it's very, very important that we do start talking about this and teaching children. You know, some people do teach their kids about bad touch and all of that. But for me, like I said, I was so young, I didn't even know that it had happened. So there's also a component where we need to teach children to look out for some signs that something has happened to them if they're
That's
having
good.
experience where they're being aroused, sexually aroused, and they really have not, to their knowledge, had any contact. That's a red flag, and they need to
Yes.
talk about it and teach them what to look for and how to talk about it and who to talk to. I just don't want to leave that out.
Boy, you almost starting a whole different conversation. I'm shutting my mind down right now, so I do not have to start this next conversation because we'll be on here for another hour. Oh, okay, Marlene. Okay. Come on out of that thought. Come out of that thought. Lisa, I wanted to say final remarks for you. Again, we're talking to Lisa R. Gray, who wrote the book They Don't Tell: Sexual Abuse from a Mother's Perspective. You can get that book on Amazon.com. You can reach out to Lisa if you really want to kind of, let me say this. Y'all forgive me if you think I'm wrong for this, but let me just say this. These women are professional women. These women are licensed professional counselors. If you do reach out to them, know that there is a cost. Okay. And I know we're talking about sensitive topics, but there is a cost because this is what they do for a living. So, but if you want to reach out, you can reach out to Lisa at bloodlinecursebreaker@gmail.com. Lisa, final comments.
I really wanted for those, I think it's important for people to know that there is such a thing as epigenetics. That there's such a thing as intergenerational trauma. That sometimes some of the things, because so many people walk around with this guilt and this shame of why me? Well, it may be that you just got born into a womb and it passed on. So I want people to be able to release themselves from the guilt, from the shame, some of those why questions, and then be able to.
Y'all just want me to start all kind of conversations tonight. Why are you doing that, Lisa? I'm
because
not doing
we
it.
talked about the courts of heaven as one, but you know, the Lord was telling me a lot of people don't understand that concept, and it is a very new concept that people aren't aware of. But people are aware of epigenetics because it's science-based. We know that children of those who have been traumatized, something's changed in the gene pool, in your actual DNA. So those are the things that we're going to have to start addressing. Those are the things that we're going to have to start addressing. And I think it's so important for us to go ahead and invest in ourselves, invest yourself in your time, and doing some journaling and getting some professional help, some professional assistance. And one person may not have all of your answers, but people can take you as far as they can.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay. But I don't want people walking around with a limp. You don't have to walk around with a limp. You can be made whole, spirit, soul, and body.
That is so true.
I just thank you. I just thank you for the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I have to say that there are many people who have a book in them, or they might have a blog in them, or they just need to write about what happened. I believe that I was healed when I wrote that book. But do you know, as I started going over some of that stuff, I would stop writing and lay on the floor and just cry.
I bet you did.
I'm telling you. And I thought I was done. Okay, I'm ready to do it now. And the Lord just looked at me and said, "No, babe, girl.
You're not done.
There's more. So it's okay when there's more. I'm not walking around in that shame and that guilt anymore. I have an excellent relationship with my daughter. My daughter is healed. I'm telling you that there's healing available for all of us. All of us have gone through some things. So do it for you. Do it for you. Take a step. Take us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That is so good. I want to give a few minutes for anyone in our audience on Facebook for their final comments. So we got some really good comments in here. If you have any closing remarks, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We got about 2 minutes before we'll get off air. Sandra says this was so good. Sandra also said, "You women are amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Keep doing what you are doing." Yes. So we'd like to thank you all for joining us for Legacy of Lies. We have 2 more weeks of Legacy of Lies. We will hear from Charlotte Williams, who also has a book. Charlotte, what? Oh my, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. I just don't even know why I'm going to do this to myself. What is the name of your book?
The Female Side of God.
The Female Side of God. I'm not saying another word, but I'm going to tell you, you're going to want to get that one too. The female side. God has a female side. What? Okay. Oh, girl, that you got flags, hearts, everything coming up in the chat. They're like, oh my goodness, the female side of God. We also will hear from one more of our speakers. She's not with us tonight, and that is Keisha, who also has an abuse story that she wants to share. So we got 2 more weeks. Do we got 2 more weeks? Yeah, we got 2 more weeks, and it'll wrap up this series, and then we will see what God has in store for us next. So until next time, I want to thank you all for joining us on Legacy of Lies. This broadcast came to you by way of Industry on Blast. And ladies, thank you, and we are signing off.
That concludes another mind-blowing episode of Industry on Blast. Thank you for joining us on this riveting exploration of the industry secrets. Be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode as we continue to unveil the truth. Visit our website at www.blastnetwork.com to catch up on previous episodes and stay connected. If you have a story to share or are interested in becoming a sponsor or guest, we want to hear from you. Together, we can ignite change and create a world free from the shadows. This is Industry on Blast, signing off. Keep shining a light on the truth.